The top stories tonight in Y News. Filipinos will soon be allowed to exit the country for non-essential travel, but traveling as tourists remains prohibited.
Several government offices placed under lockdown.
The Interagency Council for Traffic will postpone its crackdown on color-owned vehicles.
The Department of Transportation advises MRT passengers who have used MRT tickets and had contact with personnel who have tested positive for COVID-19 to observe their physical and health condition.
Australia's second-largest city heads back into more precarious coronavirus lockdown.
Russia unveils a monument for delivery men and women who fed Moscow during lockdown.
Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Tuesday, July 7, 2020. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the globe. I am Harleen Delgado.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am William Theo.
First in the news, Filipinos will soon be allowed to exit the country for non-essential travel, but traveling as tourists remains prohibited. Rosalie Cos details why.
Effective 15 days after publication in the Gazette, the national government allows the non-essential foreign travels of Filipinos through IATF Resolution Number 52.
Ang pag-alis sa suspensyon ng non-essential na mga biyahe ng mga Pilipino. Kaugnay nito, lahat ng travel restrictions na may kinalaman sa outbound travel ng mga Pilipino ay inalis na rin po. Bawal pa rin ang turismo, pero ang mangyayari po ay pagbabiyahe, meron po tayong mga requirements na dapat ipakita sa ating Bureau of Immigration.
However, there are certain conditions for outbound travel, such as submission of confirmed round-trip tickets for those traveling on tourist visas, adequate travel health insurance to cover rebooking and accommodation expenses, allowed entry by the destination country, execution of a declaration acknowledging the risk involved in traveling, and follow the National Task Force guidelines on returning overseas Filipinos, such as undergoing PCR test and quarantine. This newly released directive does not cover Filipino nurses without any existing contract abroad.
Hindi po napaprocess pa rin ng POA ang mga papeles ng mga nurses intending to work abroad.
Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Some government offices have been placed under lockdown after some of their employees tested positive for COVID-19. The Department of Interior and Local Government National Police Commission, or DILG Napolcom Center in Quezon City, has been placed under 7-day lockdown starting yesterday. This was after DILG Undersecretary Epi Bangco-Densing III announced on his Facebook account last Saturday that he tested positive for COVID-19. In a statement, DILG spokesperson Jonathan Malaya says during the lockdown period, there will be disinfection of the entire building and contact tracing among personnel. Meanwhile, Metro Manila Development Authority, or MMDA, suspends work at its headquarters from Thursday until Friday to disinfect all its offices and workplaces. According to the MMDA, 4 of their personnel have tested positive for COVID-19. Close contacts have been ordered to comply with the 14-day quarantine period and have been subjected to swab tests. Another, the Central Office of the Tourism Infrastructure and Enterprise Zone Authority, or TIEZA, was put on lockdown on July 2 until further notice after one of its employees tested positive for the coronavirus disease. The MRT Line 3 also temporarily suspended its operations beginning today until July 11.
Meanwhile, Malacan allays the public's fears over the recent COVID-19 case surge in the country. Our Malacan correspondent Rosalie Cos tells us why.
For 2 consecutive days since Sunday, the number of new COVID-19 cases in the country has been more than 2,000, including fresh cases and late reported. And based on Johns Hopkins University CSSE COVID-19 report, the Philippines now has more cases than Singapore, which places the country second in Southeast Asia in terms of COVID-19 confirmed cases. However, Malacan allays the public's fears over the increasing number of infections and insists that most of those are mild or asymptomatic cases. The palace official stands firm that in terms of case doubling rate and the utilization of critical care capacity, the pandemic in the country is still manageable.
Kung nagpa-plateau naman po ang ating case doubling rate na 7 days, stable siya at marami po tayong critical care capacity, kaya natin gamutin, hindi naman po dapat tayo bumalik sa mas ma-stricto pang quarantine dahil dumating na po talaga tayo sa punto na kinakailangan na natin maghanap buhay lahat.
Currently, the positivity rate in the country is at 7% or 7 out of every 100 Filipinos tested for COVID-19 are positive. The mortality rate in the country is lower than the global average, and the Philippines still has 72% available beds in quarantine facilities. Based on this data, the Philippines is still winning the battle against COVID-19.
I will always say we are winning against COVID-19. Siguro po dun sa mga ayaw maniwalang nananalo tayo, sige po, sa inyong mga personal na paninindigan, tanggapin niyo po yon. Pero habang hindi po namamatay ang tao, habang meron po tayong kapasidad na magbigay ng medical na lunas sa mga nagkakasakit, hindi ko po matatanggap na tayo po ay hindi nananalo.
Yesterday, the palace official mentioned the Philippine economy cannot afford another total lockdown. The national government now depends on local governments, the private sector, and the populace to prevent the further spread of the infectious disease. Rosa Licoz, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The COVID-19 infection rate in the Philippines has gone higher according to the UP-OCTA research group. Our health correspondent, Aiko Miguel, clarifies why.
The University of the Philippines OCTA Research Group has seen a 1.6 R0 or reproductive number of the coronavirus disease 2019 in the country, now that general community quarantine is implemented in most areas. R0 is a basis for how many people can be infected by an active case of COVID-19. Because of this, COVID-19 cases may spike to 150,000 by the end of August, the research group says.
Right now, yung projection namin sa Philippines by end of July is 60 to 70,000. And by August, more than 100,000. Kasi bumibilis yung transmissions natin. During ECQ, nasa 1 na yung R0 natin. During MECQ, medyo tumaas na siya, mga 1.1 to 1.2. And right now, nasa 1.6 na siya sa Philippines. Which means most of yung, it's mostly sa Metro Manila and sa Cebu. So 1.6 is a high value of R.
Dr. David's group clarifies what they are reporting is not a prediction but a projection. The public should well be informed of this to be extra cautious so cases do not spike that high next month. According to Dr. David, the spike can be prevented if the government considers to re-evaluate health protocols in offices, gyms, establishments, religious gatherings, and mass transport. Their group does not recommend dine-in services and, if possible, no physical contact in mass gatherings.
I think they should re-evaluate that, and because it will definitely lead to more transmissions. Right now, especially since we have a lot of cases already, this could be problematic. The trajectory shows that the solutions we have are not good. So we have to come up with new solutions, better solutions for mass transport, mass transit, and office infections.
The group also adds contact tracing is difficult to do this time because many people are allowed to go out of their homes. Physical contact is happening among people when traveling and when in workplaces. UP-OCTA Research Group also recommends to the government to conduct a randomized testing. There should be at least a 20,000 daily testing capacity in the country, especially for people allowed back to work. 10,000 of them should be from the National Capital Region, prioritizing those who are asymptomatic or silent spreaders of COVID-19.
So if they go to a mall, if they go to a religious gathering, and they have the virus, but they don't show the symptoms, hindi natin siya ma-differentiate from other people, and they could possibly infect other people.
Meanwhile, it was published on the journal Cell that the virus causing COVID-19 has mutated. This is now more infectious 3 to 9 times. According to the DOH, they are not setting aside this issue, and they've been gathering information to prove the publication. For now, the public is advised to be extra careful and be more responsible when going outdoors and in traveling because COVID-19 transmission is faster through physical contact among people. Aiko Miguel, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases recommends an application for COVID-19 contact tracing, while an expert reminds the public about contact tracing apps to avoid risks. Dante Amento will join us tonight to tell us why live. Dante, good evening.
Harleen, many groups, organizations, and governments around the world have created mobile contact tracing applications. Contact tracing is one of the measures experts advise to use in addressing pandemics. Contact tracing facilitates early detection and isolation of individuals exposed to a person infected with a virus. One of those applications is StaySafe.ph, which is being used by the Manila City government. The app can scan the surrounding for possible COVID-19 positive, suspect, and probable cases. The user can also report their health condition, including that of the entire family. According to Manila City Mayor Francisco Isko Moreno Dumagoso, the application can also notify the user and be extra cautious.
Maaari kanyang bigyan ng datos, real-time data kung may COVID sa paligid mo. At ikay mag-guide na talagang kailangan mag-ingat ka.
Harleen, Mayor Dumagoso also said it is safe to use the StaySafe.ph because it is compliant with Republic Act 10173 or the Data Privacy Act. Even the Department of Health says that StaySafe.ph app is recommended by the IATF. Meanwhile, a technology expert reminds the public about downloading or using contact tracing applications. Earlier today, I talked with Jericho Garcia, and he said that one must check the reviews and feedback from the other users. If a contact tracing application asks important personal details such as a bank account or credit card number, better not continue downloading it. Garcia said only basic information, including name, address, and contact number for the purposes of contact tracing are needed.
Mas valid pa nga po kung hingin ng contact tracing contact person po to validate lang. Kunwari, ako po, hihingin yung contact person po ni tatay ko.
Authorities say it is important for users to input accurate and exact details when using reliable contact tracing apps. Back to you, Harley.
Thank you so much, Dante Amento, for that report.
The House Committee on Good Governance and Public Accountability today heard the alleged anomalies in the implementation of the National Government Social Amelioration Program, or SAP. The lawmakers also questioned the slow distribution of the second tranche of the SAP. Ray Pelayo explains why.
The lawmakers questioned the slow process of distribution of the second tranche of the emergency assistance from the Social Amelioration Program of the government. The Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD, said they aim to assist about 17 million families for the second tranche, including 5 million who are also eligible but were not able to receive aid in the first tranche. During the hearing, the DSWD noted that they have already distributed assistance to around 1.3 million beneficiaries. But House Deputy Speaker Luis Ray Villaferte asked the DSWD officials why the distribution is slow-moving. The representative from Camarines Sur also noted that it will take more than a year if the rate of distribution will be based on the daily accomplishment of the DSWD. One of the methods used by DSWD in their payouts is a digital payment system. The DSWD replied they will make it sure there will be no duplication among the beneficiaries of the second tranche. Social Welfare Secretary Rolando Bautista reported they have traced around 48,000 duplicated beneficiaries in the first tranche. The department clarifies they immediately distributed the payouts for the clean list of beneficiaries they received. The DSWD was not able to give a time frame as to when the sub-distribution will be fully accomplished. The DSWD will also seek the assistance of the uniformed personnel in distributing the assistance in remote areas. The DSWD also reported that around 17.6 million beneficiaries received SAP assistance in the first tranche out of 18 million targeted beneficiaries. The lawmakers also urged the DSWD to increase the capacity of food pack production. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
And let's now take a closer look at the updated count of coronavirus cases around the world. The COVID-19 pandemic has now reached a total of more than 11.6 million confirmed cases in 188 countries, regions, and sovereignty. That's after countries reported more than 175,000 new cases from yesterday. The fast-spreading disease has claimed over 538,000 lives after close to 4,000 COVID-19 patients lost their battle since yesterday, while more than 6.3 million people across the globe have recovered from the new coronavirus infection as of today. Thanks be to God.
Meanwhile, the country's Department of Health says that 1,540 new cases were reported today, including 993 fresh ones and 547 late reported. That raises the total confirmed cases of coronavirus infection in the Philippines to 47,873. That is as of 4 p.m. today. We have lost 6 more patients. There are now only 34,178 active cases today. Through our fervent prayers, medical interventions, and sacrifices of our medical frontliners, 201 more people have won their battle against the invisible enemy. That brings the total recoveries nationwide to 12,386. Thanks be to God. The Interagency Council for Traffic, or IATF, says it will postpone for a while its crackdown versus colorum vehicles. IATF Chief and Transportation Assistant Secretary Manuel Gonzalez says, for now, they will focus on assisting bus passengers along EDSA following the suspension of MRT operations amid the limited transportation.
Sa ngayon po, hindi muna po kami mag-operate ng gano'n dahil inaayos muna po namin para mapaganda itong takbo ng mga buses. Ang IATF will manage to assist the commuters sa pagsakay tsaka to guide din kung saan yung tamang sasakyan po ng mga commuter papuntang northbound and southbound. Ito po ang inaasikaso ngayon ng IATF.
Yesterday, 4 company shuttle services were apprehended and impounded in Makati City. According to IATF, the units were private vehicles being used as company shuttles to transport employees. However, the vehicles were said to be lacking valid documents such as 3-year notarized contract of lease.
They are operating without approval ng LTF Armored to operate as shuttle service. So violation yan considered as colorum in the absence of that document.
However, this did not sit well with some netizens. Some say this is inconsistent with the call of the government to private companies to provide transportation to its employees. Others say the government should be considerate and craft an interim policy on the operation of shuttle services and vehicles to address the transport woes amid the COVID-19 crisis. According to the Department of Transportation, the minimum impounding period for colorum vehicles is 3 months, with penalties worth 50,000 pesos for jeepneys, 200,000 pesos for trucks and vans, and 1 million pesos for buses.
Ang yan po ang hirap pagka ang isang commuter, ang ating manlalakay, pag sumakay sa kolorom vehicle, pag na-aksidente po yung isang vehicle na kolorom, kawawa po yung mga pasero dahil wala po silang makiklaim or any benefits.
The UNTV News tried to reach out to Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, or LTFRB, to shed light on the matter, but the board has yet to respond as of the moment. The Department of Transportation and the Department of Health advise MRT passengers who have used MRT tickets and had contact with ticket sellers who have tested positive for COVID-19 to observe their physical and health condition. Joan Nano tells us why.
The MRT3 management was able to trace the train stations and working shifts of 15 ticket sellers whose COVID-19 test came out positive. Based on the recent data from the Department of Transportation, a total of 198 MRT personnel have been infected with the new coronavirus. Most of the confirmed cases are depot personnel, 16 are station employees, 3 train drivers, and 2 control center personnel. The DOTR discloses that ticket sellers who were tested positive of COVID-19 are from Cubao, Kamuning, Quezon Avenue, and North Avenue stations. The working shifts of the ticket sellers assigned in North Avenue and Cubao stations were 4:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. and 1 o'clock p.m. to 11 o'clock p.m. While ticket sellers from Quezon Avenue were on duty from 1 p.m. to 11 p.m. and the station personnel from Kamuning Station were deployed during 4:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Passengers who had direct contact with infected station personnel are advised to observe their condition and submit themselves to a 14-day home quarantine to prevent further transmission of the disease.
Kapag may nararamdaman silang kakaiba, ay agad-agad silang lumapit doon sa mga local city health officers nila para makapag-swabbing agad o magawan agad ng paraan.
The DOTR is working closely with the other agencies to come up with a digital contact tracing system among passengers once MRT3 resumes its operations. Meanwhile, many commuters found it hard to travel today due to the suspension of MRT3's operations beginning today. At the Cubao station, many passengers were surprised because they were not aware there would be no train trips today.
Hindi po namin alam na wala pong MRT, kaya bari mag-aantay na lang kami ng kung merong masasakyan. Bali, tinext po namin yung HR namin, magpapadala daw po sila ng service.
Doon na po sana ako sa may Quezon na MRT station. Wala daw pong biyahe. Hindi ko po alam kung tutuloy pa.
On the other hand, the queuing of passengers in North Avenue for the bus augmentation reached down to West Avenue as buses were deployed quite late this morning. The DOTR vows to negotiate with the bus operators to adjust their operations to as early as 4:30 a.m.
Pinapakiusapan natin yung contractor ng mga buses na ito na kung po pwede ay mas agahan pa nila yung dispatch system kung kaya nila na magsimula ng 4:30 or 5 a.m. better.
Transportation officials target to resume the operations of MRT3 on July 11, but this will still depend on the results of the massive swab testing among MRT3 personnel. Joan Naro, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
A Metro Manila mayor says that accurate reporting of COVID-19 cases is crucial to jumpstart the economy. Vincent Arboleda tells us why.
One of the bases local governments use in implementing COVID-19 measures and in restarting their economy is the information coming from the national government and agencies relevant to the COVID-19 response.
May focus natin din yung ating efforts on quarantine measures, our resources, containment, isolation, and making other areas safe for business and other economic activities.
That is why Marikina City Mayor Marcelino Chodoro was puzzled after the Health Department reported that Marikina, Makati, Muntinlupa, and Quezon City are emerging COVID-19 hotspots. Following clarification sought by the city mayors, the DOH retracted its earlier declaration, saying that the data used was that for June and promised to improve the verification of data.
Ang sa akin ay dapat lamang na gawin nila ito dahil nagbubukas na tayo ng negosyo sa lungsod ng Marikina at mali na nakapagbigay tayo ng mga ganitong nakakabahalang pronouncement na emerging hotspot. Paano yung negosyong papasok? Paano yung negosyong magbubukas? Mawawala ang tiwala ng tao.
According to the July 6 data of the Marikina LGU, the city has 390 confirmed cases, 129 of which are active cases, 229 are recovered, while 32 have died. Marikina City also has 68% lower COVID-19 cases based from the June 22 to July 5 data, with 25 cases as compared to those from June 8 to 21 with 78 confirmed cases. Based on the growth change presented by the Department of Health to the IATF yesterday, Marikina has the highest percentage of decrease in the number of COVID-19 cases in the NCR with negative 68%, followed by Manila with negative 17%, Muntinlupa with negative 10%, Las Piñas with negative 7%, Navotas with negative 5%, and Makati with negative 4%. The Marikina City LGU strategy uses a 5-step approach: screening, testing, treatment, containment, and reintegration of COVID-19 patients. The city also continues to conduct enhanced targeted testing among industries set to reopen. Some businesses in Marikina even have their own testing areas assisted by the City Health Office, a clinic, and an insulation facility. According to Mayor Chodoro, accurate information is crucial in balancing the needs for health as well as the requirements and policies for restarting the city's economy. Vincent Arboleda, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Meanwhile, the Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA, announces that its Office of Consular Affairs located in Aziana in Parañaque City will resume its operations tomorrow, July 8, after disinfection of the facility has been completed. Affected applicants will be accommodated starting July 8 until July 30. Meanwhile, the DFA also informs the public that confirmation emails for passport appointments may be delayed due to an ongoing system upgrade. For updates from the DFA, just visit their website and social media accounts. The Interagency Task Force Against COVID-19 now allows more salon and barbershop services in general community quarantine and modified general community quarantine areas. In GCQ areas, aside from haircut services, for hair treatment are also allowed. In MGCQ areas, nail care, basic facial care services, and basic personal care services will also be in operation. However, minimum public health standards must be strictly enforced in those establishments. The allowable operating capacity of the salons and barbershops will also be expanded in GCQ and MGCQ areas starting July 16, 2020. Households are advised to coordinate with their water service provider right away if they are unable to pay their ECQ water bill on the due date. One of our senior correspondents, Ray Pelayo, will tell us why.
July 31 is the deadline for accumulated bills during the enhanced community quarantine period for non-Lifeline customers or households that consume more than 10 cubic meters a month. While for Lifeline customers or those who consume 10 cubic meters below per month, the deadline is on August 31. But according to Maynilad and Manila Water, customers may use a promissory note to extend the payment period of ECQ bills.
Maaari po ito na maging an extension of about 3 months to 6 months po, no? Para mabayaran po nila yung mga bills nila. So, wag na po nilang hintayin na lumagpas dun sa due date, ano po. So, makipag-ugnayan na po sila kaagad sa mga business areas natin.
Teresa Sihong-chan is a Manila Water customer who has used a promissory note. Her accumulated bill amounting to more than 8,000 pesos will now be paid in 3 months.
Kasi halos 3 months din kami hindi kumikita sa driving ng asawa ko.
Maynilad plans to extend the deadline for payment of ECQ bills. The two water concessionaires advise their customers to communicate with their representatives on the payment of their water bills. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
William, we are on board the UNTV radio mobile booth and we are here in Commonwealth Avenue in Batasan Hills, Quezon City. Let's take a look at the situation on the road. William, so far we have a moderate traffic situation here in our area for vehicles coming from Elliptical Road going to Fairview. Meanwhile, on the other side of the road, we have a light traffic for vehicles plying the Commonwealth Avenue from Fairview to Elliptical Road to EDSA. And for our weather update. The easterlies are affecting parts of the country. State Weather Bureau Pagasa says the weather condition is affecting the eastern sections of Visayas and Mindanao. Meanwhile, Metro Manila and the rest of the country may experience partly cloudy to cloudy skies with isolated rain showers, mostly in the afternoon or evening due to the easterlies or localized thunderstorms. Possible flash floods or landslides may occur during severe thunderstorms. No tropical cyclone advisory is issued. And in other news, the Philippine Coast Guard rescued the pilot and passengers of Piper Seneca plane after an emergency landing in the waters of Sinunok, Zamboanga City this morning. The pilot is identified as Yothis John Purintanam and the three passengers are Suramya Kanal, a Nepalese national, Jemmy Chako Domen, an Indian national, and Razel Dulay. According to the initial investigation of the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines or CAAP, the flight was supposed to land in Dumaguete, but the aircraft's left engine failed during takeoff. There were no casualties reported in the incident. The plane is owned by Royal Aviation School in Dumaguete. President Rodrigo Duterte is neutral on the issue of ABS-CBN Corporation and appeals to lawmakers to vote according to their conscience on the franchise renewal of the media giant. The House of Representatives may vote within the week on the approval of franchise of ABS-CBN Corporation. This is after the 12 hearings on the issue of the House Committee on Legislative Franchises and Committee on Good Government. The National Telecommunications Commission or NTC issued a cease and desist order against the broadcast operation of ABS-CBN when its franchise expired on May 4, 2020.
Talaga naman ang posisyon po ng Presidente, neutral po siya pagdating sa ABS-CBN. Humingi na po ng tawad sa kanya, pinatawad na niya, neutral po siya, vote according to your conscience.
And for the news abroad, here's Maria Latoza live from Perth, Australia. Good evening, Marielle. What have you got for us tonight?
William, today Australia's second largest city heads back into more precarious coronavirus lockdown as the country prepares for the closure of the Victoria-New South Wales border. Also, Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro takes another test for the novel coronavirus. And I will also tell you why TikTok says it will exit the Hong Kong market.
Go ahead, Marielle, and tell us why.
Here in Australia, lockdown measures will be reimposed in the country's second largest city. Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews said today. The measure will confine Melbourne residents to their homes except for essential business, and that is for 6 weeks. The decision, which affects around 4.9 million people, was announced just hours before the busy border between Victoria, of which Melbourne is the capital, and New South Wales is scheduled to close for the first time in a century. From midnight on Wednesday, July 8, everyone in Melbourne will be required to stay home unless traveling to work, studying, shopping for food, or attending medical appointments. Restaurants, cafes, and bars will be able to provide takeaway service only. Gyms and hair salons closed, household gatherings limited to 2 people, and the current school vacation extended. Victoria was responsible for 191 of the 199 new cases reported nationally today, the biggest one-day rise since early April.
I think a sense of complacency has crept into us as we let our frustrations get the better of us. I think that each of us knows someone who has not been following the rules as well as they should have. I think each of us know that we've got no choice. but to take these very, very difficult steps.
New Zealand today, its national airline will not take new bookings for 3 weeks. New Zealand is looking at limiting the number of citizens returning from home to reduce the burden of overflowing quarantine facilities. Thousands of New Zealanders are returning to the South Pacific nation, which is among a handful of countries to have contained the coronavirus, reopened its economy, and restored pre-pandemic normalcy. Air New Zealand said it is pausing new bookings for the next 3 weeks and would work with the New Zealand government to align daily arrivals with the capacity available at isolation facilities. New Zealand's borders are still shut to foreigners, and citizens and permanent residents have to undergo 14 days of mandatory quarantine. Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro said on Monday he has undergone another test for the novel coronavirus after local media reported he had symptoms associated with COVID-19, including fever. Bolsonaro told supporters outside the presidential palace that he had just visited the hospital and been tested for the virus, adding that an exam had shown his lungs clean. Bolsonaro has repeatedly downplayed the impact of the virus, even as Brazil has suffered one of the world's worst outbreaks, with more than 1.6 million confirmed cases and 65,000 related deaths, according to official data. Over the weekend, Bolsonaro attended multiple events and was in close contact with the U.S. ambassador to Brazil during July 4 celebrations. The U.S. Embassy in Brasilia did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Bolsonaro had previously tested negative for the coronavirus after several aides were diagnosed following a visit to U.S. President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago, Florida estate in March. Japan warns of more heavy rain on the southwestern island of Kyushu. The Japanese government has bolstered rescue operations as the death toll in flood-hit areas reached at least 50, with about a dozen people reported missing. The heavy rain has destroyed homes and caused landslides in what is shaping up to be Japan's worst natural disaster since Typhoon Hagibis killed 90 people in October. About 80,000 members from the police, fire departments, and Japan Coast Guard are on a search and rescue mission. At least 70 landslides across 12 prefectures have been reported, and more than 1.3 million had been ordered to evacuate. Video sharing social networking service TikTok says it will exit the Hong Kong market within days. The company, now run by CEO former Walt Disney co-executive Kevin Mayer, has said in the past that the app's user data is not stored in China. And those are the reasons behind the news here in Australia and in other parts of the globe. Back to you, William.
Yes, thank you, Marielle, and the rest of the UNTV News and Rescue team in Perth, Australia.
Doctors and nurses and other medical frontliners have won praises for their efforts to contain the coronavirus crisis. But a monument unveiled in Moscow, Russia, celebrates different frontline workers, delivery men and women. Nina Armilio has the story why.
Its inscription reads, "Dedicated to those who made self-isolation possible." A monument designed by Russian artist Alexei Garikovich has been unveiled in Moscow in honor of couriers who delivered food, parcels, and takeaway meals despite the risk in the middle of the pandemic. It is around 3 meters tall and features the form of a standing man hollowed out from a thick sheet of rusting metal. Delivery men and women who serve Muscovites feel proud of their contribution in the battle against the virus.
We know that in many towns across the world, people are planning to install the monuments to honor doctors and volunteers, but we believe that the delivery people also contribute a lot into all that situation.
The monument makes me proud, of course. I have never in my life seen or heard of the opening of a monument to the couriers.
A strict self-isolation regime in the Russian capital saw Muscovites confined to their homes, with many using supermarket and restaurant deliveries to reduce their exposure to the virus.
I find this work great. I'm doing this job for 2 years. Of course, my work helps people. People are not left hungry.
It helped me to avoid shops in quarantine, and now it helps me when the time is pressing. I can just order food and not bother about cooking.
Moscow was the epicenter of Russia's coronavirus outbreak in a country where almost 670,000 people have been infected and close to 10,000 have died. At the peak of the lockdown, most residents were only allowed out of their homes to buy food, seek emergency medical attention, walk the dog, or take out the garbage. Commissioned by 5 retailers, the statute honors the more than 60,000 couriers who worked during the lockdown as demand for delivery services skyrocketed. Nina Armilio, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Those are the reasons behind the news, July 7, 2020. I am Harleen Delgado. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
And I am William Theo. Because we need to know, we will always ask why. Have a great evening.